Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630.
6:37 on the Morning Majority, and Hurricane Irene is chugging up the coast. We have Steve Portnoy down in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. Give us an update. How's it going, Steve?
Hey, good morning to you, Mary Catherine. You know, this area is now under a hurricane watch. The entire coast of North Carolina is, as this storm is now packing maximum sustained winds of 115 miles per hour. Now, it's weakened somewhat, but it is expected to strengthen as it moves beyond the Bahamas and comes up the coast. And looking at the track issued by the National Hurricane Center as of 5 o'clock this morning, it looks like we here on the Outer Banks of North Carolina are due for a direct hit of this storm at some time in the overnight hours of Saturday night into Sunday. It looks like that's when we're going to get the brunt of it. But the big thing is going to be the impact this has on not only here on the Outer Banks, but also on New England. It looks like it's going to sock Long Island and head right up into Connecticut and Massachusetts, areas that are not used to seeing hurricanes. Here, it's a fairly common occurrence. Folks know what to do here on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, but further up the coast and into New England, it's going to be, people have to remember what it's like to face a hurricane up there.
Do they have a mandatory evacuation in the Outer Banks right now, and are people adhering to it?
In Dare County, Brian, that's the area, the island that includes Nags Head and Cape Hatteras. At 8 o'clock this morning, there's a mandatory evacuation order for visitors. Ocracoke Island has had that in place for at least the last 36 hours, I believe, and that is an island that's only accessible by ferry. We approached one of the ferry terminals yesterday and saw about a dozen cars leaving one of the last ferries yesterday to come off Ocracoke Island. Folks seem to be taking it in stride and just packing up their things, although, believe it or not, one woman got on a ferry headed to the island. She says that her relatives live there, and they say they're going to die there, and they don't mind the idea that they'll be trapped on this barrier island, even in the midst of a hurricane with, let's say, something like 120-mile-per-hour winds.
All right, so 115-mile-an-hour winds now, Steve. What's it going to be like when it arrives? I mean, is it supposed to build between now and then?
It is, Brian. As it heads off the Bahamas, it heads back into the Atlantic Ocean as it rides up the coast. I'm not a forecaster, but that's what the forecasters are telling us, that it is expected to become a major hurricane, as it is now, and possibly strengthen to a Category 4 storm before it hits land. We'll see. The hope is that it weakens somewhat and back down to a Category 3, perhaps even a Category 2, as it hits the Outer Banks. That's what folks here are hoping for, of course.
What do you mean you're not a forecaster? You haven't been looking at the computer models to determine where it's going to go and where they're not?
Brian, heck, I can look at a map. I can show you where it's going, but I don't know why.
Yeah,
you didn't take those classes in college?
Actually, sometimes when you're there, you know less than when you're looking at the internet. I mean, really, it's true.
What is Steve? Woke up 10 minutes ago.
What is Steven Portnoy going to do? Are you going to follow the hurricane as it moves up the coast, or are you just going to hunker down there in North Carolina for the rest of your life?
In all likelihood, we're heading up to Nags Head next because we just want to be exactly in the bullseye. That's the plan.
All right. Well, stay safe.
Have fun.
And keep it away from D.C. if you can. Just start blowing really hard. Blow it off that coast, all right? Because I don't want to get wet. So thank you, Stephen.
Actually, I think that is the good news, is that, for us at least, it's bad news for the Outer Banks, obviously, but it is going to apparently miss us if it stays on the current track, miss us quite significantly. We may see some light wind on the coast, maybe some rain, but...
You never know where these things are going to go, though. I mean, the cone of death, as I like to call it, I mean, it does still show the possibility of hitting D.C., smack dead in the
As
eye.
a North Carolinian, I will be keeping a close eye on the poor Outer Banks.
Well, one thing you can be sure of, because it's going to involve apparently a hit on New York City, is we're going to hear about it endlessly.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it may just be a big rain event, but my God, the panic will that's all we'll hear about in the mainstream media, because it's happening in New York.
I'm sure people in Texas and Nebraska and Colorado and certainly California were very tired of hearing about the 5.8 earthquake.
Or the snowmageddon that we inflicted upon the entire country last year.
and they will certainly get upset with the endless coverage of the hurricane.
Of a category, maybe a Category 1 that basically just dumps a lot of rain.
Although I watched the Weather Channel last night, 8 o'clock, I turned it on, and they had their head dude who said this has the potential to be the worst hurricane in the history of mankind. I mean,
well,
he didn't say those
they all
exact
say
words,
that about every hurricane.
But he said this one is one of the worst ones that you could possibly have in quite some time, because it is Category 3, could get worse, and it could have a direct hit on North Carolina, obviously the islands there. And
I gotta say, the Outer Banks are not large pieces of land, and a lot of on occasions you have lost entire parts of an island during a hurricane because it just gets washed out in the middle. I mean, it's a dangerous situation down there.
Don't get me wrong; it is going to be a bad thing for the Outer Banks. There's no doubt about it. They're in for some rough days ahead, and the damage could be quite severe. But I think beyond that, I think as the further these things go north, it is every day tracking further to the east. Every single day they've moved the track to the east. It gets into colder water. It's going to diminish in strength. It probably will be largely, I think, in this area, a non-event. I think we might see a little rain.
Well, let me tell you something. We had, in 2003, Isabel, it was 60-mile-per-hour winds and a lot of rain, and it knocked out power to like 1.9
yeah, but that was one that
came in the area.
That came ashore, and that came in right in our area. This is not going to do that.
You think that, but you don't know. But even if you get grazed a little bit, we can still have major issues around here.
On Monday we'll talk.
Well, listen, that's your prediction. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I'm saying that it doesn't take a lot for us to feel the pain of a hurricane.
Need I remind you that you have Pepco, Brian?
That's well done. Well played, Mary Catherine.
Yeah, that was a great point. Be afraid, everyone. Be very afraid, because we know if a couple of trees go down, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people will be without electricity.
Well, I mean, that happened. So, I mean, I understand your point that it was more, right in the middle of the land, but, I mean, you could still have major issues. and we're kind of saturated a little bit right now as well. So that
well, you are. My lawn's a little dry.
Looking forward to it.
The other thing I was saying, we have friends who are vacationing right now in the Outer Banks.
Oh, no.
That is sad when your vacation is totally torpedoed.
When you plan a vacation for the whole year, and, when you go down there and they're with several other families, so you rent this,
you pick a house,
you pick a big giant house that's sitting there right there on the beach, and, there's nobody around you and just enjoying, one last week of vacation, and then you get this hurricane that rolls in, and you have to leave on Thursday morning instead of staying all the way until Sunday.
I wonder in this age of liability and lawyers and all that, is the hurricane party entirely a thing of the past? The idiotic, I'm going to stay on the coast and drink a lot of beers in my beach house, that used to be a frequent Gulf and Outer Banks event.
Yeah, there are certain hurricanes you could do it with. When it gets to 3, anything over 2, I wouldn't want to mess with 2, to be honest.
I remember a Southern sheriff who was trying to convince people to leave, and they wouldn't want to leave, so he went around with toe tags. And he would visit them and said, listen, at the very least, if you're going to stay, would you please attach this to your toe so that we'll be able to identify the body later? A lot of people said, you make a good point. Maybe I'll leave.
Yeah,
by the way, we have
idea.
Sue Palka from Channel 5.
Oh, yeah.
Love Sue Palka.
Awesome.
So she'll give us, her track. I'm sure she's been looking at the models, unlike Steven Portnoy. We'll do that at 8:36
Portnoy's just eating
morning.
shrimp burgers and hanging out.
I'm going to get such a nasty email from him later today.
Yeah, you are.